Are you morally responsible for climate change? Frank Assisi, the CEO of the environmental pressure group Chums of the Earth, has been kidnapped by a band of desperado emperor penguins, upset that his campaigning on global warming is spoiling their enjoyment of taking cheap flights and driving SUVs. The penguins, having discovered that their flippers are not ideally suited to the task of handling weaponry, are keen to avoid a violent confrontation with COTE. They hope to use rational argument to persuade Frank that his organization has taken a wrong turn. To this end, they have hired a philosopher, King Penguin, Penguitotal, the peripatetic, to debate the issue of climate change with Frank.
Your organization is committed to the view that every one of us contributes toward climate change, and therefore that we are all morally responsible for the consequences. Is that right?
Yes, Penguitotal. We all have our own personal carbon footprint, which is the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that we as individuals cause both directly and indirectly. We know that such emissions contribute towards man and penguin made global warming. And we know that global warming will cause an impact on the environment in such a way that it will cause suffering in the future. It follows, therefore, that we all are morally responsible for this future suffering and that we all should take steps to minimize it.
So what you're saying is that if I stop using under-flipper deodorant and no longer fly to visit my cousins in Hawaii, then fewer people will suffer in the future.
Well, no, I'm saying that if we all take steps to minimize our contribution to the world's carbon footprint, then fewer people will suffer in the future.
That's interesting. Is my personal contribution to this carbon footprint great enough so that if it is subtracted from it, there will be less global warming and therefore less suffering in the future?
No. The effect that any one individual has on global warming is minuscule. But if you multiply it by the world's population, more than 6 billion people, then you get a large effect.
So in fact, if I carry on exactly as before and continue to take flights, drive my SUV, and have regular barbecues, I will not be causing any additional suffering in the future. By your own admission, the effect that any particular individual has on global warming is negligible. Is it not?
Is Penguitotal right to suggest that no individual is personally responsible for any bad consequences that might occur because of global warming?
The answer to this question is no. Not one individual could be held completely responsible for global warming or the effects that our actions have now on global warming. This is backed up by many different ethical theories, the first of which would be Bentham's Havana calculus theory. If we put the numbers into the Havana calculus, obviously we're going to have a negative outcome because the way that everyone is living right now, we are going to impact the future. However, if you subtract one person from that equation out of like 6 million people, billion, it's not really going to make a difference. One person's impact right now is so minuscule on the future that it just wouldn't even matter. Mill also supports this because even though if we took one person out of the equation, we would possibly be creating more good than bad. The effects of not using the electricity and the transportation now creates more harm than it would in the future, because if we can't transport things fast, or if we can't get to it one place or another, in like especially in cases of emergencies, we would be impeding on our lives right now, and that's not what Bentham and Mill want for the consequences, even though the advanced consequences would be that disastrous. However, Frank does bring up a good point. Every single person would have to change in order for the world to change. And through our research, we found that there's a branch of ethics called environmental ethics. In this, the main person I'm going to talk about is Theodor Adorno. He's a German sociologist and philosopher. He worked a lot during World War II and came up with the idea of environmental ethics. He believes that the world is disenchanted. This simply means that everyone sees the world as a place that is just a giant machine. It works by natural laws that we've all discovered that are no longer mysterious to us, so the world doesn't seem so awesome if we look at it. We see it as just a thing that we can use, a giant machine for our own benefit, and in that we also do not look at animals as any kind of special. We don't see plants, trees, anything like that as any type of special, so humans are the only thing that really matter. But there is a way to change this. Adorno proposes that if we re-enchant the way we look at the world, we can begin to fix our lives in order to best suit what would be better for the world. Say we change the dependence on electricity or fossil fuels for transportation. If we were to change that, we could all come together and create a better future, but it would involve everybody. So, like I said, accusing one person of being responsible for global warming is not logical, and in nearly any case, altruists might have an argument as to change our ways and convince one person that they're at fault, but I highly doubt that it would have any kind of sound reasoning behind it. So, in conclusion, the Penguin is correct. We can't accuse any one individual of any kind of consequences that'll happen from their personal carbon footprint on the world because of how minuscule it is. But we do have ethical theories that would back up the idea that every single person needs to change. So, thank you.